blessings that you get to experience when you live in a big city is when you're able to travel from point A to point B and you get nothing but green lights. What a blessing. Living in a big city normally implies that when you go from point A to point B, you're going to find, all kinds of experiences like traffic jams and slowdowns, construction, accidents, traffic lights, stop signs, yield signs, and all kinds of slowdowns that you normally try to avoid as much as possible. In many instances, you have to drive early in the mornings, or you have to drive, later at night in order to avoid, all of the inconveniences of living in a big city as much as you can. So in rare occasions, I have experienced going from one side of the city to the other and finding nothing but green lights. It has happened probably 2 or 3 times in my life, and it feels amazing when there's no traffic, no slowdowns, no detours, no construction or anything that is slowing you down or stopping you from getting to your destination. So today, I want to talk to you about a traffic light of sorts, or a green light of sorts that is found in the Bible. And this, my friend, is found in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 15. So just to give you a brief context of the story for today, we find the nation of Israel, leaving the nation of Israel, going from point A to the promised land that God had already given to the nation of Israel, being point B. And we know from the Bible that, it didn't take him long for them to come to a standstill. You would figure that when you're going from point A to point B and there's desert in between those two places, you will not technically or necessarily expect traffic jams or slowdowns of any kind, particularly at that time in history. But, soon within a few days, they found themselves at a crossroads of sorts. And more than a crossroads, technically they found themselves at a dead end. And the problem is that, God was taking the nation from one point to the next. But the Bible says that, God could have taken them through a different route, but God knew that they were not ready for that. Even though the journey was going to be rather short, God knew that they were not ready for that next season, so he took them a different way. And, many times, you probably have experienced this. Let me know in the comments down below if you have ever experienced this. You think that life is going to go easy, that things are going to go smoothly. You have a project or a vision, and your expectation is, well, I am a believer, or I believe in God, and I know, or probably he promised me that he was going to give me this, or that he was going to do that for me. And many times the expectation is that things are going to go just smoothly and without any problems whatsoever. But you know what? Problems are sometimes required. Slowdowns are sometimes necessary. And that is exactly what happened to the nation of Israel. They find themselves, leaving, but coming to a dead end of sorts. And the Bible describes it as, to the left and to the right, they had mountains. And in front of them or ahead of them, they had the sea. And behind them, they had an enemy. The enemy in the form of the Pharaoh and his army, that were coming to recapture the Israelites and take them back to captivity. There are times in your life when it feels that you're not only not making progress, but it feels like you are going backward in life or backwards in life. Have you ever felt like that? But let me tell you, that has happened to me. That has happened in a couple of seasons in my life, and as recent as just a few years ago, I found myself at a sort of transition or in between season in my life. You know, I have experienced, and I'm more on the other end or the other side of this transition, but it is called midlife or middle life. And for some reason, every time that I think of the word midlife or middle life, I usually associate another word that makes a phrase that we know as midlife or middle life crisis. For whatever reason, I always thought that's never going to happen to me. I am a believer and I am prepared and so on. Israel never thought that was going to happen to them. They thought, well, God has given us freedom and He's taking us from point A to point B, and we should be there within a few weeks or a few months. They were not counting on a journey of around 40 years, like eventually it turned out to be. But sometimes you find yourself in seasons of life where there is uncertainty, there is danger, sometimes there is no progress, sometimes things, feel like they are getting worse rather than getting better. So here is the nation of Israel, trapped in an in-between place or an in-between season, in between their past and in between their future, in between point A and point B, in between, captivity and the promised land, but nonetheless, they find themselves in a season of transition. But let me tell you something about that season or those seasons of transition. Those seasons that are in betweens, they will eventually lead to a season of transformation. And that is exactly what has happened to me, and that is what can happen and will happen with you eventually. At the moment, perhaps you feel like you are stuck. You feel like, you are trapped. You're technically at a dead end of sorts, and you cannot move forward. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to handle this season of life. But let me tell you, God has a plan. And He has a purpose, just like He had a plan and a purpose for the nation of Israel. But I find something very interesting, in this story. So, you're driving through the desert, and you're not expecting much, slowdowns or traffic jams or detours, construction, and all of those things that are associated, with driving from point A to point B. But nonetheless, they are here at this red light that it seems like it's taking forever. And that kind of red light where you know that you're in danger and you know that you need a green light in order for you to go and keep going and getting, closer to your destination. Have you ever felt like that? Not just symbolically, but, even physically, in reality, in real life, there are times when we come to an intersection and we get, I not only hate, getting that red light, but it's even worse when you see that you're going on a green light, but as you're getting closer to the intersection, you see that there's this yellow light coming, and you know that you don't have enough momentum and enough, space for you to continue to move forward, because you know that there is a red light coming up. Those red lights are especially difficult for me. It's one thing to get to the traffic light and the light is already red. That's one thing. But what about those times when you have to slow down and you have to stop and you have to wait? That is perhaps how you're feeling in this season in your life. My career and my ministry, is geared in particular to people that would be considered middle lifers or midlifers. Anyone that is in that stage in life or that season in life. Though I minister to anyone who listens, and this message, God can use it for anyone that is listening. It comes from this perspective and this position of someone who has gone through that season, who has experienced that stagnation and that red light, and has experienced, desperation, and has experienced doubt and unbelief, and you just don't know how long that season is going to last. You don't know how long that red light is going to last. But let me tell you here, God had already promised, and He had particularly given Moses the blueprint for the next few steps that they were to take. And the Israelites, when they found themselves that they were surrounded by impossibilities, they went after Moses, and they were very angry and upset and frustrated because they were expecting to die in the desert. They sensed that Moses had no idea what he was doing. They thought that God, had brought them out of Egypt just to kill them in the middle of the desert, even though God had particularly given them promises. And He had told them, I have a land, I have a place that I have prepared for you. I'm telling you with this story, I'm also telling you, God has a season. He's taking you from point A to point B. And He wants to take you out of that season that is now in the past. You are in a season of transition that will lead you to a place of transformation. But you have to be patient, and you have to wait for the green light. So at this point, Moses is praying, and he's crying out to God. And Exodus 14:15, tells us that God, I can almost feel the frustration in God's answer to Moses. God is telling Moses almost in a confrontational way, and He's saying, Moses, why are you crying out to me? Why are you still praying? You need to go. You need to tell the people to move forward. You need to go, my friend. And there is a need for faith. And I know that faith, begins with prayer, with reaching out to God. But faith will be completed and perfected when you actually take action. Not only faith requires that you pray, but faith also requires that you work, that you do something about it. So God had timed everything so perfectly that at this time when they are crying and praying and begging God for help, God is saying the light is green. You need to go. You need to move forward. You need to go, and you need to march, and you need to keep going. Move forward. So my friend, I am telling you this. You're coming to the red light, and you're going to be there for a season of life. But make sure that you are in tune with God's will and with God's timing. His will is perfect, and His times are perfect as well. So God will do something, but I want to warn you about something in particular. Do not allow what you're leaving behind to rob you or to prevent you from what is ahead of you. You have many years of life, and you have a career, and you have experience. You have lived, 30, 40 years, or whatever, as many years as you have lived. And you find yourself in this midlife of sorts, and you know that you want a better life. You know that God is not through with you, and you know that there are better days ahead. You just don't know how to get to that season. You don't know what are the steps that are required to get there. Well, my friend, pray about it. Trust in the Lord. But at the same time, I will encourage you to invest in yourself. Invest in your personal growth. Invest in your personal development. Spend time in prayer and study in the Bible and the plan that God has for you. But do not just sit there waiting as if God will do your part. God will do His part, but He expects us to do our part. So God could have technically lifted the entire population and just translated or moved them from point A to point B. But God wanted for the people to grow. God wanted for the people to be blessed. That He wanted them to get better, to get stronger, because there were going to be other challenges along the way. There were going to be other seasons that they had to experience in life. So I encourage you with this, and I will end with this. Be ready for that next step. Be ready for that green light, because the light will change eventually. I know that it is frustrating. It frustrates me. There was a time when, my wife and I, were driving somewhere, and we took this little exit that had a red light. It had a traffic light, and the light was red. And I am not kidding you. It felt like we waited there for, 10, 12 minutes, waiting for that green light, or for that light to turn green. And let me tell you, it was frustrating. It just felt like time was being wasted. Like I should have gotten to my destination by now, after waiting for so long at this red light, or in this position, or in this state, or in this season in life. So there is point A and there is point B, and sometimes things happen in between. So if you find yourself in that stage of in-betweens, be patient, yes, pray, yes, but also be ready for action. Do your part. God will open the sea, like He opened the sea for the nation of Israel and for Moses. Yes, they could not go to the right, and they could not go to the left, and definitely they could not go on reverse. That was just not an option. So the only option that God had for them is you have to move forward. So my friend, let's make sure not only that we are moving, but that we are making progress, and that we are moving forward. So it is such a great blessing, when you have someone like Moses on your side. When you have someone that can help you, that can encourage you, and pray for you, and pray with you, and intercede for you. So I truly encourage you, and I strongly recommend that you surround yourself with a team, that you surround yourself, if you are a believer, make sure that you're attending church regularly. Make sure that you have a pastor, that you have a group of friends, that you have a support system around you, because that will make a big difference. But at the same time, you have to invest. There are people that will not come with you from point A to point B. There are things that will not make it from point A to point B with you. But you know what? God will put new things and new people in your life at this time, and also in the new season, in the point B of your life where you are heading to right now. So as part of my career and my ministry, I can tell you that I offer my services as a life coach, and as a mentor, and a motivator. I can preach, I can teach, I can host events and things of that nature. But in the meantime, I hope that you're being blessed by the content that I am uploading to the different social platforms. And please feel free to reach out, and probably we can work together if we are a good match for each other. I will be very, very blessed and honored to be able to work with you if we are a good match for each other. When I say invest in yourself, I am saying some things are not free. They require prayer, they require work, they require study. When you hire a life coach to be in your life, and to bless you, and to give you input, and help you with clarity, and things like that, yes, it can cost. But how much is it worth? How much is your next season worth? How much is the encouragement and the motivation that can help you get there actually worth for you? So in the meantime, enjoy the free content that I create, then I will keep you in my prayers, and I will pray and hope that you find someone in your life. If it's not me, that God can use other people, other coaches, other pastors, other mentors, other people in your life to help you get to that next season. So my brother, I will catch you in the next video. And until then, be blessed, and remember, keep moving forward. Keep going, my brother.